Welcome to the Scott Townsend Show, brought to you by Dietzo Man Productions.
Hey, this is Scott Townsend. Welcome back to the Scott Townsend Show. And one of the great things about doing this podcast is you meet some incredibly smart and interesting people, or I do, and enjoy bringing them to your attention. Today is one of those days. We have here's the bio. Let me just read this to you here. Trevor Bruner took a long, winding career path to product management. His previous careers include nuclear submarine officer. Okay, there's one. Offshore oil well driller. There's two. College instructor, financial advisor. He's the first to tell you he didn't know what he was getting into when he started in product management, and wants you to learn from his mistakes. That's why we're here talking about his book. It's the newest book. It came out in June, I think it was. A quick start guide to product management. What I wish I knew when starting in product management. Welcome to the show, Trevor Bruner. How's it going?
Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate you having me here. And thank you for at least implicitly implying that I'm one of those interesting people. I started hearing you talk about that, and I wondered why you've got me on the show. But I'm looking forward to talking, and thanks for having me.
You bet. I mean, nuclear submarine officer. I could talk.
Spend some time about that too. Yeah. There you go.
Offshore oil well driller. This is something tells me we're gonna have you back on the show for some more in-depth convo on some other things. So
anytime.
We'll see how this goes and see if you want to come back.
Fair enough.
So you've got this product management. You've got this book out. I read through it. Super easy read. If you're into product management, if you're thinking about going into product management, you're getting ready to step into product management, this is one of the books you need to have in your Kindle, on your bookshelf. Well, I think it's a Kindle right now, right?
It's a Kindle.
Yeah.
I'm working on the paperback, but yes, it's Kindle now.
This is one of the books that you need to have in your Kindle because this is super powerful book, easy to read and understand, and just it covers a lot of ground. So I've got a lot of notes here, a lot of questions. So I'll just kind of start shooting and kick it over to you. The first thing I thought of with product management, let's see if this even relates. It's almost like a product manager is almost like holding like a baby bird, and you're trying to bring it to life. You want it to grow. You want to nurture it and develop it. You want to be careful with it. You bring in a lot of specialists to help, get this thing to fly. Mm-hmm. And so you're bought in. You're brought in to help this thing not only survive but thrive, and that takes a lot of people doing a lot of different things, and you're the person that's holding on to this thing. And I don't know. I just thought about that the other day when I was reading this. It's
an interesting analogy. It is an interesting analogy because, and I think that the trick though is that if you're talking about nurturing a little fledgling bird, that's one stage of the product, right? When it's a very young thing that you're trying to somewhat protect from the outside forces, while still nudging it to kick it out of the nest, right? Because until the product is in the real world, it doesn't matter, right? If you're just doing skunk work stuff behind the scene and it's not actually out there, it's not providing any value. But then the next trick is once you've got it, effectively kick it out of the nest, right? You've let it launch, pun intended. Mm-hmm. You still have to fly with it, right? You still have to keep it going because there's other factors at play once that thing gets out of the nest. And that's a lot of what product management is to help it get stronger and faster while navigating the real world.
Thank you for joining the Scott Townsend Show. We'll be back right after this.
Pop's Daylight Donuts, man, they've got the best tasting donuts, sausage wraps, pastries in Northeast Oklahoma. And also, if you'll tell the staff there, hey, Scott Townsend said to give me a large spicy pig, they'll give you a free large spicy sausage wrap. But you have to tell them Scott Townsend sent you. So tell them, hey, Scott Townsend told me to tell you to give me a large spicy pig. So there's the offer. There's the call to action. So go to Pop's Daylight Donuts, say hi to Mark for me, and yeah, go to Pop's Daylight Donuts and get you some. The other sponsor is Castafly Outdoor Adventures.
Adventure. That's where it begins. We look to create and document our moments in time while embracing the majestic wonder and beauty of the great outdoors. Our quest is to explore the back roads of the Ozarks, camping, fishing, and just getting lost. Refresh your spirit and join us on our next adventure.
Paul and his crew invite you to subscribe to the Castafly Outdoor Adventures YouTube channel. The other thing I was going to ask, and there's a lot of things I'm going to ask here, is you brought up the distinction between product management and project management. And I think sometimes even myself have used the incorrect term. They sound so similar. And, so what's the difference between project management and product management?
It's a great question. So because it's the difficult part is they sound so much alike. And I mentioned this in the book. It's like if you think about football and you hear of a quarterback and a cornerback, just because they sound the same, they have vastly different responsibilities. So in project management, you think about building a bridge, a building, some piece of like infrastructure. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And once it ends, you leave. You staff it up. You spend a lot of effort on it. You think about Gantt charts and launching it. Those are projects. And historically, a lot of software companies have built software in a project-oriented fashion. And I say software companies who build software. A lot of the digital natives, the companies that started off as software companies tend to build in a product-oriented fashion. A lot of companies that you hear about on the Fortune 500 are not native software companies. They recognize they need to build software, but they're building their software in the same way they built all their other often hardware products. So product management understands that there's continual care and feeding of the product for years to come. Just because you've built it and launched it doesn't mean you're done, right? So once you've built a bridge, you're kind of done. Once you've built a product, there's more enhancements to it. There's more things you need to add on to it. There's more staffing and investment you need to have. And the TaskOps founder, Mick Kirsten, wrote a book called Project to Product, which is all about how large enterprise companies should be building their software in a product-oriented fashion, not project-oriented. And so understanding that differentiation is critical for large enterprise customers.
Yeah, product management. I'm thinking of the iPhone right now, and I'm thinking of when it first came out. You remember what it looked like? It was
right,
thick and kind of. I mean, it was great. It was great, but anybody that's used an iPhone, and that's probably everybody, knows how that has changed and morphed and adjusted and overcome challenges like antenna gate. I think at one point, you grab the phone and so they had to overcome that problem, and they're always iterating, always updating.
Right, exactly. And that's the critical piece is if you just, and don't get me wrong, in the world of product management, there are still projects that if you want to launch a new product, that launch I believe should be thought of as a project, right? You have somebody who's managing, there's a launch date. which means you've got to back out when you're going to make press releases and when certain milestones are going to get met.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding sort of both is important, but if you're a product manager, you need to be really focused on that continual care and feeding and investment in the product, and recognizing that you might need to invest in certain things such that you can build great new features 6 months from now or a year from now. And that's one of the big differences there.
Yeah. You mentioned, I'll say this sentence and you finish whatever comes to mind. The role of product manager is all about
judgment. So a lot of people say that the most important trait or skill of a product manager is communication. And I think communication is critical. I think it's very, very important. I think, though, the thing that comes before good communication is good judgment. Knowing when to communicate, knowing what to communicate, knowing, a great communicator can take you in a bad direction, right? Somebody who can rally the troops, but takes them in the wrong direction because they've got the wrong judgment about where the market is going, is not actually doing the company or the product any good. And so I think that the difficult part about being a product manager is you have to make judgment calls on a daily basis. And the only way you get better at that is by making decisions and then figuring out if they're good or bad, and then trying to learn from that, right? So it's that whole catch-22 with experience. The only way you get experience is by trying and failing and getting better at it. And so, I think that recognizing that good judgment is a critical and probably the most important part of your job is an important thing to remember on a daily basis.
And so to get that judgment, to become better at judging, to be able to become known as someone who has their finger on the pulse, you've got to just make a bunch of judgment calls, and they're not all going to be right.
Exactly. So so back on the submarine days, I was doing some training on something, and all the junior officers were getting cycled through this training. And when it was my turn up, the alarm sounds, something happens, and I bark out the order to do the exact wrong thing. Like, instead of saying go right, I said go left, right? It was the exact opposite thing. And the person who I gave the order to said, sir, I think you mean, the exact opposite. I said, of course you're right. And I embarrassingly gave the correct order at that point. Afterwards, the commanding officer said, well, Bruner, at least you took action, right? The worst thing to do is freeze. So even if you don't know exactly the right thing to do, you need to at least not freeze in the moment. And it's one thing to freeze in a split second moment when you're running a drill. It's another to effectively freeze when you're dealing with software, and freezing can happen over the course of a day or weeks. But it's often better to take action and then reflect on it, and then change course if necessary, and then get the feedback from your people if they say, look, good idea, but maybe we want to do the exact opposite thing that you said.
That takes a lot of confidence too in a person such as yourself, the product manager, being able to listen to others. Maybe they're your subordinates, but if they tell you something and you realize, that's probably not a good call. A lot of people will try to save face and go, no, we're just going to do that because I know what we need to do, and you just go off into a ditch. Sounds like
and that's a
part of that.
I've heard somebody say, strong opinions loosely held. So it's that you need to have an opinion, but if you learn that you're wrong, it's not confidence at that point. It's insecurity, I think. I also have a saying that all of us is smarter than any of us. So it's better to get feedback and opinions and good ideas and crowdsource from the people who work with you and figure out where to go, rather than just say, I'm the smartest person in the room and I've got this.
Right. You're sunk.
And then you're sunk, right? And even as, everybody makes mistakes and everybody, I think it's important, I'm a fairly new parent. I got a 3-year-old kid, and it's important to say, you know, I'm sorry, I messed up, right? It's important for your kids to hear that. And if you're willing to say that to a 3-year-old who you have infinitely more experience than, then why can't you say that to the people, you know, a professional who worked with you, who's got years and years of experience of their own?
And you had a section in the book about customers, and so you've launched a product, you've got, you know, you've done all your due diligence, it's out there, it's in the wild now. And so then you start hearing from customers, you start hearing people's, it was great, it's awesome, or this, we would really like, there's this whole thing about feedback, whether is it good? Yes, the feedback is good, but you need to be careful, and you point out, you need to be careful how to handle feedback. Not all feedback is, I mean, it's good. What do you call it? The love letter from a customer?
Right, yeah.
When you get something from a customer saying they're mad or upset about something, kind of talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, so everybody wants to get good feedback. When you launch something, a new product, a book, right? You want to hear it feeds your ego to hear that you've done something well, and I love what you've done, and thank you so much. That's, of course, the best thing you can get. The next best thing you can get from a paying customer is a complaint, because that means they're using it. That means they're invested. That means they want it to be better, and they're telling you what they would like to see. Now, whether it's exactly the solution you want to implement, but they're at least telling you there's a place that you can take the product that's better than where it is today. And so that's the, you know, defects and feature requests are love letters from customers. And keeping that framing in mind is important when you've got somebody who's very frustrated with the product, and in which case people can be, right? They've paid for it, and they see that maybe there's a shortcoming, or maybe there's something you can do that's really important for them. It's important to keep that in mind. The worst thing you can have is just silence. You don't know if somebody's using the product. You don't know if they don't care about it, then the likelihood that they're going to renew or that they're going to tell anybody about it is quite low. Mm-hmm. So we've managed to take some people who've been very, very frustrated and have voiced that, and then been able to turn them into raving fans because of our ability to respond, because of our what we've done to make them happy. It's the people who are just disengaged that you have to worry about. Right. I mean, you can think about yourself. If you've got an app on your phone that can frustrate you, it frustrates you because you want to use it, right? You want it to be better. And if you've got the ability to give that feedback and it's heard and listened to by the people who are making the application, that makes you feel good. The ones that you just never use, that's the place you got to be concerned about as a product manager.
How do you know you've been heard if I'm a customer? How do I know that I've been heard?
So that's a really good one, because oftentimes what ends up happening is a customer has an issue. We get on calls, and I get on a call with customers and hear what they've got to say. I've been on the other end of that too. And the trick is to actually listen and try to understand what the pain point is. So often we have a tendency to want to give an answer. So you tell me what the problem is, right? And I say, oh, either I discount it, it's not really a problem, or I tell you, oh, here's the solution, here's what you got to do, right? I mean, it's funny because you hear about this in relationship counseling all the time, right? Your spouse, your significant other has a problem. We almost immediately want to jump to solutions. And people don't feel heard when you immediately jump to a solution, unless they're really asking you for that, in which case, sometimes you can get lucky by telling them, here, go do X, Y, and Z, and your problem will be solved. But typically what you need to do is really listen and dig and ask a lot of questions and try to get to the root of what the problem is, and not what they're asking you for, typically.
That's
often
really hard. That's hard to do. It's hard to really, truly, if you really listen, that's almost like a contact sport.
absolutely,
I know.
absolutely, because there's no script for that, right? There's no again, it's practice. You have to get in there. You can read about it, you can watch other people, but until you're on the call, right, until you're on the field and getting hit, you don't know how you're going to react.
Mm-hmm. You brought up the example of the 1/4-inch drill bit. You know, someone walks in and says, "Hey, you go into Lowe's or Home Depot. Hey, I need a 1/4-inch drill bit." And the guy goes, "Hey, I got they're right over here. Here's one for you. I got it." And this is the cheapest, and it's the softest metal, so it's the cheapest. Here you go. Oh, thanks. Guy turns around, walks out, and then spins back around and says, "Oh, did I tell you I'm drilling into cement my driveway?" Ooh, well, that changes everything.
Right.
So they're asking the why, digging down into what is the customers think they know the solution. They're coming in saying, "Hey, I need the drill bit, give me a drill bit." But really it's the product manager's job to find out, well, what are you doing with this thing?
Right. And absolutely. So, and customers feel like they're doing you a favor, right? They think they're helping when they say, here's what I need. I just need you to give this to me. And so if you're just a retail ticket taker shop and that's how you want to operate, then so be it, right? If that's what you want. But if you're trying to provide a more sophisticated service and you really are having, you really want to help that customer, you have to dig into what it is they want. And oftentimes it can result in a better relationship. Because let's say you're the Home Depot.
Yeah.
Is it that they need just the drill bit? Do they need a hole to hang the picture? Are they doing a whole remodeling? In which case, maybe you can refer them over to the home improvement section where there's a lot of other services that you can offer to that customer, right? It might have gone from just a $2 sale to, oh yeah, we're redoing our living room. And then suddenly that's a $20,000 project that you've just opened up because you were able to dig in and ask some more questions.
That's so cool.
I use the analogy too of like, go to a doctor and you say, "I want this medicine," right? Well, why? Oh, because I think my leg's broken. Okay, well then, do we need to set the leg? Is there a problem? What's my real goal? Well, maybe I want to run a marathon, right? Maybe I just want to walk up and down the steps without pain. Like, you gone from here's a prescription to now making a diagnosis to now figuring out where do you want to lead your life going forward. And as a company, I think it's important to know where you live on that spectrum of, I'm just dispensing medicine, I'm setting your cast, or I'm trying to help you achieve a life goal.
And sometimes it can be just as sometimes it's not as difficult as digging too far down. "Hey, doctor, I need sleeping pills." Well, here you go. Here's your sleeping pills. Or the other doctor goes, "So can you, you're not able to sleep?" "No." "How come you can't sleep?" "I'm not quite sure." "So what do you do before you go to sleep?" "Well, I drink a pot of coffee and I watch TV and," "Well, okay, hang on a second. Maybe you don't need the sleeping pills. Maybe you just need to quit drinking the coffee before bed."
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Let me look. This one really stuck out. You talk about influence without authority, product managers having influence without authority, and how to handle that. So how do you handle that when no one's working for you, no one answers to you, and yet you're in charge of working with all these departments?
Right. So I think there's a misconception that you have to have authority to have influence. So often it's like, well, they don't report to me, so how can I have them do anything? I think the trouble with that mindset is that you should always be operating with the mindset of influence without authority. If you're going around your company and saying, "You report to me, so go do X, Y, and Z, or I'm going to give you a bad evaluation," you've lost, right? So it's the same regardless of whether somebody works for you or not. And to to influencing what they want to do. If you're having to push people to do things, you're probably going about it wrong. If you are leading people and saying, follow me, then it doesn't matter whether or not they directly report to you. That you've instilled upon them this desire to do what you think is the right thing to do. And so then they think it's the right thing to do. And so again, regardless of whether they report to you or not, you should have that same philosophy and relationship with people. That's my opinion.
The product manager, a lot of times, yeah, I totally agree, because I've been in that position, and no one reported to me, no one, answered to me. But I worked with the accounting, accounts receivable, manufacturing, R&D, sales, and marketing to create. Well, we did conferences, and so you had to get input from all these different people, the salespeople,
right.
And so you're talking about the hummingbird and the elephant in your book. I felt like the hummingbird. How you're just going around
right.
all these different departments, touching very quickly and building relationships, making little deposits, so that when you come back around, they're more willing to take a minute and listen to you, or help you out in some way.
Exactly. And even if you had direct reports, right? So what? You're still having to work across multiple departments who don't report to you, regardless
Right.
of whether you're a product manager or you have some other title. So I think it's important for product people to recognize that this is not a problem unique to product management. This is a problem unique to people who want to get things done.
Anything worth doing is worth doing badly.
I wish I
And
could
that
take
just
credit for
made-
that one.
Oh, really? Well, it's in the book. You put it in the book, so there you go.
There you go.
So what's up with that concept? I know what you're talking about here, but it just makes me laugh because so many people get this wrong. They think they have to be perfect out of the gate.
Right. So I set out to write a bad book, and at least I wrote a book, right? If you want to do anything well, you have to do it poorly at first. You're never going to start off being phenomenal the first time out of the gate. And if you put that sort of pressure on yourself, you'll never do anything. So again, this was not an idea that I came up with, but I love it. You see it. No kid ever starts to take his first steps, falls down, and says, "I can't run yet, so I'm not going to try this anymore."
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you want to get good at something, you have to start off doing it badly. You've got to just start, and only by doing it will you ever get better at it. And so, yeah, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing badly, and over time, you'll get better. So,
It just makes me laugh. Ed Catmull, who's the the president or CEO of Pixar, in his book Creativity Inc., was talking about every Pixar movie starts out, even though they've had 25 #1 movies in a row or something. He said every one of Pixar's movies start out sucking very badly, and it's only after you massage it and tweak it and come at it, and put it down, come back, work on it some more, does it get better. But at first, if you looked at the first iteration of Monsters Inc., you'd think, oh my God, that's horrible. And he's right, it is horrible.
right. But then look what it turns into.
Yeah. So that's just amazing to me. Well, gosh, I have to have you back on. I've got so many other questions here, and I hope you'll come back. We'll see.
Of course.
But, Trevor Bruner, if someone wants to get in touch with you, send some information or get more information, how do they get in touch with you?
Probably the best way is LinkedIn. Trevor Bruner, I'm on LinkedIn, or my email is trevor.bruner@gmail.com.
Okay, I'll put that down at the bottom of the notes here. All right, well, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for your time, and it was that was fast, but it was good, and I recommend the book highly. Once again, it's Quick Start Guide to Product Management, what I wish I knew when starting in product management. Thanks a lot, Trevor. Really appreciate it.
Scott, anytime. Thank you for having me.
Well, for Trevor Bruner, this is Scott Townsend. Thanks for listening to the Scott Townsend Show. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.
The Scott Townsend Show is a Deetso production. For more episodes, visit the Scott Townsend Show YouTube channel, listen on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.